Welcome. My name is Jim Walsh. I'll be conducting our meeting today, and I'd like to begin by having our commissioners introduce themselves. Am I right?
Sorry, I took the clock. Commissioner Aquila.
Doug Kellner.
Greg Peterson left. And continuing on down, Todd.
Todd Valentine,
Kimberly Galvin.
Paul Collins, Joe Burns,
Anna Svizzero.
Tom Collins,
John Conklin.
George Stanton.
Bill McCann.
Liz Hogan.
Bob Brehm.
Our guest, please.
Karen Reed.
Warren.
Thank you all. The first order of business will be to convene the meetings of our Board of Canvassers to certify the results of the special elections held on September the 13th to fill vacancies as follows. In the 9th Congressional District, Bob Turner. In the 23rd Assembly District, Philip Goldfederer. 27th Assembly District, Michael Simonowitz. 54th Assembly District, Rafael Espinal Jr. 73rd Assembly District, Dan Quart. 116th Assembly District, Anthony J. Brindisi. 144th Assembly District, Sean M. Ryan. Have a motion?
Move that we approve the canvas report prepared by the staff.
Second motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That concludes the Board of Canvassers meeting, and we now go into our normal scheduled Board of Elections regular agenda.
Should we take a minute to
Take a minute to sign it.
Yes, and if we're going to take a few seconds to do the necessary signatures for these reports.
No, the state really doesn't have enough money to put ink in these pens.
You got the pen. What do you?
Pass this out, good stuff.
Thank you.
Your signature is so much more important with this real black ink. Thank you.
Come on now. Sure.
We're going to do ours later.
You gotta get one of these silvers. Shake the ink down.
Do we have to use that type of a pen, or does it matter?
No.
Hey, whatever pen you have.
Here, this one works.
Terrible.
No.
This one
0 for
works.
2.
You may need to do a special budget request to buy a couple of pens.
Well, I can get my first name very solidly.
And,
I think we need copies.
Oh, Greg,
This
I use what I can handle.
I think we're gonna go back to Valentine.
Works just perfect.
And those, well,
Yeah.
sign them whenever you want to.
Yeah, I'll be
Okay.
doing both here at the same time.
That's fine.
All right, we'll continue with our agenda. Item number 1, the minutes of the July 28th meeting. Do we have any additions, deletions, corrections? If not, we'll accept the motion to approve.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Unit updates, Bob, Brehm, Todd, Valentine.
You want to go first?
You can go first.
Well, we're progressing, couple things just to bring up to date. You know, obviously, we're preparing for next year's budget. You know, the call letter it starts with a request from the governor's office for us to submit the numbers from last year. So we're reviewing last year's narrative, which explains the projects that we have undertaken and why we need more money than you ever give us. It's true. We've been doing it, you know, and begrudgingly they'll often give us things. So we're in the process of doing that. Unfortunately, as you may have read, you know, with the Professional Employees Federation voting down their contract, that many agencies, and ours included, were required to lay off 2 people. So we were unfortunate to give notices to those people yesterday. Those are effective in 3 weeks. You know, it's a bad situation, you know, but our numbers were in line with other small agencies of a similar size. So we were proportionally the same, but still, it's difficult, you know, when you already have a small staff to start with, and that can be very painful. And on top of that, although this is more of a happy note than a sad note, I just wanted to highlight, because he's here today, is George Stanton. He's our head of Information Technology Unit. He has decided that he would like to retire at the end of this year just before Christmas. So we wish him well on that. So,
Here, here.
Give him a roll of students. Yes.
Speech.
Congratulations.
and then as we go forward to next year, you know, and not to go into the court cases, but for planning purposes, as far as our conferences and agendas working with the County Board of Elections, we can really only work through January conference, because after that, we don't really know. Our own conference is we really can't do because of the presidential primary, because the counties, in the time leading up to that, we can't move it forward because the counties are getting ready to send the ballots out for the presidential primary, and we can't really do it immediately afterward because, well, they're finishing the votes in the presidential primary in those 2 weeks, 3 weeks immediately following it. And then to go beyond that, if the primary doesn't move, then you're bumping into the ballot access period and the petition circulations for the next election. So what we're doing is partnering up with the county boards to, since they already have at least a January conference scheduled, to you know, provide those things that we normally would have done at our regular conference, to get time set aside for that, so we can do, you know, the case updates that occurred through this election cycle. We can do our usual updates regarding voting machine, the status of the changes to that sort of stuff, and try to work as a partnership with them. We had an initial conference call with the executive committee, and conversations prior to that at their last conference. So, as far as planning for us is concerned, you know, as far as we can get through is January for that conference, and that's, and I don't remember the date.
The 17th.
17th, and that is scheduled in Ithaca, the city of Ithaca, and I don't know the hotel name, but it's on Cornell University.
Statler.
Statler. And then April, of course, is the presidential primary, so, you know, when we have our ballot, we don't have the calendar out for that yet, it's too early we're not ready for that yet, but.
Busy year.
Yep. So, and we'll be putting that political calendar out. Yeah, typically it would be like 6 months out, so we're right around that time for a normal political calendar to come out. I mean, we have a draft, we just haven't released it because it's premature because we're still running this election. But we are getting requests for that information, so. And then, you know, it's not that you want to look through an election, but we have to plan for next year, so.
Could I ask you a question, Todd?
Yeah.
The people who have to be let go because of
Yes.
the budget crunch, are they that will, if things loosen up, will they be the first retired in their positions?
Well, they would go back on a preferential list, yes.
Yes.
If they still wanted to. I mean,
Yes.
assuming that they hadn't gone in a position, you know.
Yeah, you've got to
Somewhere else,
job out
but
there,
yeah.
of course, of course.
If they did, it's hard. it's hard to even, tell, yes, that's what would happen, but we don't want to give everybody false hope that things could turn around that quickly. I mean, we'll know better when we get the call letter and they tell us our target numbers for next fiscal year. So we're at a point where I can't tell you what it's going to be like next year.
Yeah. But I just thought it was something, if they did open up.
Yes, oh yeah, they would be on a preferential list, yes, no
Thank you.
questions about it.
I think the only other significant, there's a lot of items on the list, but I know that a number of us spend a great deal of time working through the issues of the flooding from the various storms, and I know that kind of everybody in the building tried to help, and many of us spent the weekend leading up to the primary on the phone with some of our colleagues who were battling the storm. There's a resolution, a series of them later on, but it was one of the big items that we spent a great deal of time trying to work with the counties on emergency responses, and I think many of us spent the weekend trying to help answer their questions and give them whatever support we could. They did a great deal of work. Many of the people calling from the counties themselves suffered from the flooding, and I know, Tom had gone out to the areas hard hit in Broome and Tioga County just to observe firsthand, and a number of us went to different parts of the state that day. But it certainly, it was a big effort, and I think as one takeaway from it, we should at least give some thought, maybe for next year's legislative program, to fine-tuning once again this section for disaster preparedness.
Yes.
There is a procedure for the general election. There's not a great procedure in the primary. So at least from that perspective, we can think of ways that we might recommend to you an amendment that we might propose in that area. Other than that, the rest of the work was the routine that's in our report.
And Bob, just to summarize that, I think there was a consensus that 3-108 did not apply, did not authorize the county board or the state board to postpone or cancel the primary in advance. But I think there was also consensus that the governor, under his emergency powers, could cancel the election, but that if he did that, based on the precedent of September 11th, 2001, that it would then be up to the legislature to come back in emergency session
Agree on it.
and restart it. I just say that because we had that consensus, we ought to just memorialize that in case this comes up again, at least what we interpreted to be the current state of the rules.
And there is an administrative remedy for an additional day of voting for the general election, assuming you've started the election. There isn't a similar provision for an additional day of voting in the primary. Certainly, there's a provision that you can go to court and have, based on irregularity at the primary, ask the court to call another day call the primary over again. But somehow we should look at, is there a way of administratively dealing with this?
Would make sense.
That would provide an easy understanding of what steps to take.
May I say this, though? The work that you and Todd and Anna Svizzero and Tom Clancy put in to help those counties was outstanding, and I just would like to say that publicly, really outstanding. And I'm sure the people of Broome County greatly understand that. Also, Jeremy Krillin from the governor's office, who helped get us the buses and the transformers that were needed to give some people power and to get some handicapped people to the polls and others to the polls. I think it was all done at 1, 2, 3 last minute, and you were all great. And if there's anyone I don't know about who worked on it, please tell me and add that name to, because I want to add those names to number C. But I thank you all. It was outstanding.
Thank you. Legal, Kim Galvin.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other than what's included in the written report, I think it's just worthy to highlight the movement on the Department of Justice request to have Judge Sharp enter permanent relief regarding the 2012 primary. Originally, our reply papers to their motion were due Monday. The Attorney General requested an adjournment, and all sides agreed to it, making our reply date 10/17, I'm sorry. But it's interesting because, as you are also aware, there is a waiver application in. We put in a waiver application for the 2012 election that hasn't been ruled on. So it makes your response interesting if there's a waiver pending and you don't have a decision on that as to what position we were going to take with Judge Sharp. And we spent a lot of time internally and externally and talking about that particular issue, and a lot of county questions, a lot of everybody questions on, what is the primary going to be, and we just do not know the answer to that yet. So I would have suspected that the waiver decision would have been forthcoming, but apparently I was incorrect because we don't have it yet. But that being said, hopefully a decision will be made, and the legislature may or may not act to move it themselves. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern there right now. Makes it interesting, to say the least. Other than that, everything's in the written report unless Paul has something to add.
Not really, no.
Well, just to sum it. Let's do at least one sentence on each of the cases. The council did an excellent job in the oral argument of the case before the Second Circuit, National Organization of Marriage versus the State Board, which challenges the campaign finance laws. And so we'll see what the Second Circuit does.
With the other cases, I mean, the double vote matter has been resolved and signed by the judge, and so the vendors have the screenshots. They're working on those changes. The overvote case is very near to completion with the same status, just waiting for a judicial decree. What other?
We have the Dremelic case.
Second Circuit
Paul
brief was filed in the
That's
Dremelic case.
And refiled.
And we do have the outstanding Nysboe, New York City issue that has laid quiet probably until I say that out loud here. I know, well, he asked. Other than that,
Well,
we have a new lawsuit.
On the Nysboe, New York City initially responded
They did.
positively
They did.
to the proposal.
And then they
said
did submit a request to us to an extension for some of the work that they were doing, which, in my opinion, and I think of the board, we didn't have the ability to give them because it was the Department of Justice motion that was forcing the issue. And we haven't heard anything on that, which I thought was nice. And then we got a lawsuit in the 148th Assembly District that just came in. It's returnable next Friday, which is a routine matter.
Did you say it was routine?
They're challenging a nominating certificate. We don't really have a position on it. It's outside our
I
scope.
see
We'll
that,
just bring
yeah.
the papers.
Any further questions?
I'll ask Paul if he has anything else to add.
Time's up.
Not really, no.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Election operations. Anna, please.
We don't have much to add to our written report, although I can update you on additional nominations received for the Supreme Court contests. We're up to 28 nominations, naming 93 candidates to those various positions, and we worked through those with the council's office for review. All the candidate notifications went out, and additionally, the Office of Court Administration asked us to include information regarding training. So those have become part of the mail that we send out. We worked with John Conklin's office to accommodate that request from OCA, and that's something we've done over the last couple of years, so we continue to do that this year as well. The functional testing that we're doing in election operations, obviously that's going to be impacted now that we're losing an additional staff person. So we're hoping to proceed with this relatively on schedule and wrap up the ES&S functional testing within the next week and a half to 2 weeks, and then we'll be able to begin working on the Dominion upgrades. I don't have anything else. Joe, do you have anything?
Anna, do those upgrades, are you talking about the, including the process of changing the screens to settle the 2 pending lawsuits?
We were hoping that that software could be rolled into these, but I don't know that that work will be done. I would defer to Bob for his input on that particular issue.
These are the upgrades that fix the open issues that were left open from the original certification, plus some additional changes and fixes that the vendors have put into the system. But we have made arrangements with them that there'll be another build followed behind this that will have those screen changes in them. So if a county wants to roll one of these upgrades out, they'll just have to be aware that next year there's going to be another upgrade that they're going to have to roll out that will include the 2 screen changes that we have.
Are the counties aware of that, Mr. Warren?
Well, I don't think the counties are, most counties aren't even planning. I heard that New York City wanted to roll this upgrade out for the April primary.
Okay.
So the vendor was the one that explained that to me. I told him, well, then they better have New York City call the state board and talk to them, because there will be a second upgrade that they're going to have to roll out sometime after that primary.
That's it.
And it's because of the testing of the installation of the upgrades that you're concerned about repetitive upgrades?
It's the timing. Because if they roll out this first upgrade, they have a small window. By the time they would get it, it would probably be in December. So they have a small window between December and the April primary to get it rolled out. Then after that April primary, depending on when the fall primary is going to be, if that gets moved to June, they have no window between April and June. They have a small window between June and November to get that upgrade rolled out. If the primary stays in September, they have a small window from April to September to get it rolled out. So they just have to be prepared as to
When you
demand
say
power.
rolled out, what does that mean? I mean, what are the
They have
steps?
all their machines upgraded. They would have to upgrade both their BMDs and their scanners
And that's just installing?
and their EMS system.
The process of upgrading is installing the new software and then running tests?
And running tests on it. So it's time consuming, and they just have to be
Talking like an
prepared.
hour per machine, or?
It's probably a good 20 minutes to half hour per machine for the upgrade. And then when they start to run their testing on it, by the time they do the hash check and do the test deck on it, it's probably another hour. So it's right about an hour and a half it's going to be per machine.
The other thing, I guess it's appropriate to ask during Anna's report, if you were finished, Anna?
I was just going to mention the certifications of the 3% audits are coming in from the county boards, and we're reviewing those. Anyone who had to escalate an audit, we'll be reaching out to them to find out why and how those issues were resolved. Relatively speaking, primary day was uneventful as far as scanners went. We did have a couple of issues, one in Chautauqua and one in Seneca County, but for the most part, we did not have any system issues with the scanners that were used
And
for
can
either.
you elaborate on those two issues?
Again, I would ask Bob to, because he has been in touch with the counties and with the vendor on both of those.
I think the one issue you're talking about is the Seneca issue. Seneca called us and notified us that they had a working family ballot that had been cast and it was counted as a Republican ballot. And it was a little hard to believe at first. So they sent us their tapes and we could see that there were no votes on the working family side, and they had 95 ballots cast on the Republican side, they'd only given out 94. So that it clearly showed that there was an issue. So then we had them send us the image of the ballot in question. And the image showed that it truly was counted as a Republican ballot because the watermark on the ballot indicated they were all Republican votes. So by looking at what they had sent us, you couldn't really see too much, so we had them send us the entire election so that we could look at the image online to see what it looked like. And when you look at the image online, you can see that the ballot, as it went in, it's clearly skewed. Somehow it became skewed as it went in the back end of the ballot, and that's where the timing mark is that identifies it either as the Working Family Party or the Republican Party. So that's what caused the problem. Then it became an issue of trying to figure out how did that get skewed so badly. And the only report we have gotten is that one of the poll workers had explained that they remember somebody attempting to pull their ballot back out as it was being sucked in. So it's being assumed that this is the ballot. We don't really know, and I don't think we're really ever going to be able to find that out, but the cause was due to a skewing of the ballot.
And what was the issue in Chautauqua County?
Chautauqua County had gone out and they purchased memory cards locally, just inexpensive memory cards that they used in the machine, and there were, I think, 4 of the cards had gone bad during the election. They weren't the vendor-approved memory cards. They were their own that they had gone out. Now, whether it's vendor-approved or their own, this could happen anyways. I mean, a memory card could go bad. However, the quality of the memory cards that the vendors have approved are of a higher quality than these, so it's less likely to happen with the vendor-approved memory cards than the Staples or Walmarts or wherever they're going to buy it. But they do, it could happen, so you always have to have a backup, which would be to immediately hand count the ballots.
Bob,
But you'll
do the
lose your
counties
results.
realize that? Who
Pardon?
use the memory cards, do they realize that?
They do realize it, but I think the issue for the counties is that when they go to the vendor to buy these cards, they're probably $100 a piece. When they go to Staples or Walmart or wherever,
Right.
they're like $15 a piece.
Sure.
So I think some of them are taking a chance, and this may be the result if they do that.
Yeah. All right.
Well, so we should at least pass on that information.
Right.
Yeah, I've asked the vendors to send out a message to the counties that using poor quality cards could result in this issue.
Well, will they give out the standard of what cards they should be buying? I mean, I don't want to necessarily say they have to buy the vendor card, but are there
They have the
are
model
specs
numbers.
available?
Yep.
So
We have the
anybody
model
can
numbers of the
competitively
vendor-approved
purchase
cards.
them?
Yep.
Good.
I was going to say, can they be encouraged to lower the price of the $100 a card is a lot of money, especially when we get to the presidential election.
Initially, I think they were $150 a card. We got them down to $100. So.
Commissioner Aquila,
Yes,
while $100 a card is very expensive as opposed to the $10 card you can buy at the drugstore, it's probably cheap insurance on the warranty issues.
I would like to point out that once again, if the boards follow our procedures, their ballot reconciliation process is what brought this to light, so that they knew that there was a problem and everyone was prepared to try and deal with it, rather than a crisis situation. I think it was approached rationally. So again, it's another advisory to boards that if they follow the procedures, they're not perfect, but they're certainly have proven in several instances with Testex and now with this that they serve their purpose.
Yeah, 'cause the Seneca issue can't really go undetected. In a primary, when you reconcile the number of party ballots that were given out, and you compare that to the tape, it's going to show a difference. In a general, the number of ballots given out by ED compared to the tape would show a difference. So as long as you're reconciling everything, it can't go undetected.
the only reason I worry is because in this economic time we're in, it might be, people may be drawn to buy the $15 card,
We did tell them in several of our conference calls through the last election cycle and certainly through the spring this year through village elections, et cetera, that if they have HAVA money left, they can certainly use it to
Yes.
buy cards so that they have them on hand. They don't ever want to get caught short.
Right.
There's, you can only spend that money on certain things, so why not spend them on the insurance that you need to know that you can
Yeah.
keep functioning through election cycles, especially with the presidential election cycle coming up. You're going to need to be burning, for archive purposes, what's on those memory cards and reusing them. They might be better served to just have extra cards to continue to use. But again, we make them aware of these issues as they come up, and hopefully they're taking them in the same vein in which they are intended. Joe, did you have anything to?
Just to mention on usability of ballot design, we've been receiving primary ballots from the counties, and Phil Georgiak's been taking a look at what they produced, and will, in the days and weeks ahead, be working on an email to the counties reminding them of certain principles that we've gone through and things for them to take a look at for their general election ballots. That's it.
Thank you, Anna and Bob. Joe?
Thank you.
NVRA PIO, John Conklin.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're whittling down our nice voter review process with the counties. We just have 6 boards left, Niagara, Orleans, and Genesee in the western part of the state, and then it's Nassau, Suffolk, and the New York City board. So we're hoping to get Niagara, Orleans, and Genesee out of the way before Election Day, do something in October, and then we'll just have the 3 boards downstate to deal with, which hopefully we'll tackle by the end of the year. Other than that, there's just a written report, unless Tom has anything to add.
I think the only thing I'll just add is that we had finished up the last of the training sessions that had gone on throughout the state for the Chapter 505 compliance with poll site accessibility. I'm going to be sending out a survey to all the people who attended it just to get their feedback on it, and then I'll probably prepare a report for the next month's meeting.
Thank you, gentlemen. Campaign Finance, Liz Hogan.
Thank you, Commissioner. The written report that I included in the packet to the commissioners was as has kind of become standard practice, because so much of what we do in campaign finance is very routine, and it's really just a matter of keeping you updated as to, the volumes and things like that. But, it would be ridiculously time-consuming for me to put in this unit report the details of what we do. But I would like to say, should any of you wish any more information relative to any specific thing that we do, I would be happy to add that. I would just ask that you tell me. You'll see that I indicated that the council and staff are working on a draft regulation that Chapter 399 of 2011 mandated that we prepare, and that has to do with independent expenditures in political campaigns. So we are working on that, and we're in the stages of a first draft on that. I'd like to add that Bill and I are in the stages of negotiated terms of settlement in the case of Ballot et al. Versus the board. I just wanted to update you on that. I'd like to tell you that we also, since our last meeting, have been sued in a lawsuit entitled Fox v. Bronca, and that is a campaign finance reporting issue case as one of its elements. And there are several other elements that have to do with a town board versus a county constituted committee. The Attorney General has indicated that they will represent us on that, and so we're certainly very happy to have their assistance. Last month, I was asked to come out to Oneida County to meet with the Oneida County District Attorney relative to a criminal matter that they have pending out there, and I'll be returning there next month. There is a case going to trial there. And the last thing I just wanted to touch on was that we've made great progress. I know that has gone on forever, and it was interrupted with the mandates relative to HAVA and the machines and Nysboe and all of this, but I know the software issue that we have had going on, which unfortunately, maybe George is going to talk about this, but relative to those tech issues where things get outdated so quickly, it has been a real challenge to address creating this new software. And so even though there were some breaks because of commitments that IT had to give to other areas, we have made great progress, and the IT staff and our own staff have worked very hard to reach a point where there are really just a couple of issues that are on the table now, and they're really issues that Bill and I are going to talk to George about, and that, we expect that will be resolved. So those are the issues that I just wanted to bring to your attention, and if Bill, if you want to talk about anything, go ahead.
Thank you.
And Liz, you settled the vote cope suit, right?
Yes, we have worked on terms of settlement for that.
So it's not actually signed yet? Or
It has, the signed stipulations haven't been transmitted yet, but Bill and I signed them today.
so we've agreed in principle
We
on
have,
that.
yes.
And I think that was successful. They had initially challenged the independent, well, why don't you just explain it again? To summarize in one sentence what the case was and
Well, the
what
case-
the settlement is.
There were a number of issues in the case. Some of them had to do with what expenditures certain types of committees could make and how committees had to be registered here. There were issues of financial campaign limits and limits on money into and out of certain types of committees. And so there were 5 or 6 issues in that case. Disclosure and discussion with the members of a union and that kind of thing. So I think we have come to a resolution of that.
And we won the first, I mean, the case was dismissed, right, and then they appealed. A preliminary injunction was denied.
That's correct. That was last September, October, I believe.
Yeah.
And, the merits of the case continued with an amended complaint, and, we've had we're represented by the Attorney General in this case as well, and we've had significant back and forth.
Basically works out a system of understanding of what is required by the statute so that there will be compliance with the independent expenditure provisions of the statute.
It is my understanding that the plaintiffs in this case do understand what the statutory and board mandates of independent expenditure reporting and spending, as well as all the other issues that we've discussed, are currently under law and regulation.
So the bottom line is that the board's interpretation of the independent expenditure rules is still continuing.
That's correct.
Which I think is important because there's a popular misconception among some of the election legal community on these esoteric campaign finance.
It's unchanged.
Obviously not by us.
After the Citizens United case, people think that these rules have all gone by the side, but in fact, the interpretation of our agency has been upheld so far by the courts that have ruled on it. And of course, that's the issue in the National Organization of Marriage case that was just argued in the Second Circuit, where they're trying to continue challenging our interpretation of those rules.
Well, it's good that the public is concerned and looks into some of these things. I have no objection to that.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. Right to you, George Stanton.
Excuse me. I don't have a lot to add to what
He's leaving.
Bye.
Just want to say goodbye, George.
That's the most succinct thing I've ever heard from you since I've been.
I will give you all the benefit of the doubt that applause wasn't because I'm leaving.
Very good, George. Very good.
But no, we've been working on trying to finish up the electronic filing software and doing the filings. And I did complete a document that I'd been working on with some of the concerns that the co-directors are going to have to be concerned with on the future of IT. There's a whole lot of things coming up in the year 2012 that are going to pose some real challenges, and IT is going to be down 4 people from what it was at the beginning of this year. So I wouldn't want to be me if I was still here, put it that way. I mean, there are a lot of things that are, going to cause a lot of consternation for whoever takes over for me or whoever, or for the executive directors, however IT continues on. There's a lot of things involving not only budget, but the fact that staffing is becoming very thin. I like to have at least 2 people that could sort of do every job. That's not the case anymore down in IT. There's one person doing most jobs. For instance, if the programmer who did the electronic filing software decided to go somewhere else, there's nobody else down in my shop that can do it. So that's something that's going to have to be thought about, along with a lot of other things. I mean, there's just not the depth in people for everybody to have the time to learn everything. And that's going to be the biggest challenge for this agency in the IT.
It makes it thinner.
Well, yeah, I'm not that, I'm just one broken down old manager, but, we lost 2 people retired already, and lost one to layoff, and, or will be losing one to the layoff.
Have you provided an outline of that to the directors?
I did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just finished it this week.
Yeah, he's got- he gave it to us.
Because we're looking at a possible catastrophe.
Yeah, exactly. And then the fingers are going to get pointed at this agency and saying, how come you
Absolutely.
didn't do this, how come you didn't do this?
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to be able to say, well, if you had provided us the people, in spite of budgetary constraints, we wouldn't have this problem. You got to look ahead. I know, in my home county of Nassau, tremendous budget problems, and yet the county executive said, no, we're going to beef up, especially in view of the election coming up in 2012, we're going to beef up the Board of Elections down there to make sure that they cover this. That has to be looked at by this administration. It's not something they can just fritter away and then wind up with an egg in our face.
I should mention that there's, and you may be aware of it, that there's a big IT transformation project going on in New York State, and they have hired the Division of Budget actually hired a consultant a year ago who should be finishing up their work. But they're looking at a lot of centralization of data centers again. Storage management. Of course, we're going on to the centralized email system in December. But there's, it's going to be a challenging 2012, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that Commissioner Peterson is very right. He's very right. We're all very concerned about that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not just the Board of Elections. It's challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But some of our information is...
We have 2 key systems. If the campaign finance disclosure system goes down, I mean, that's one of the major functions of this agency right now. And
looking at a possible...
It's certainly not impossible. And then, of course, we have Nysboe as the other major system.
The good news on it, I didn't mention on the campaign fund, we did replace we were having issues with servers and memory and access to the outside locking up, and we bought a new server and that's in place and working good. So.
Kicking and screaming, we got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real screaming demon too. It's quite a machine.
But that's just a fix because of the volume of registered
Yeah.
committees and file and people using the system from the outside as well as us using it from the inside. It's just such a strain on it. The volume.
Where's the backup and recovery for us?
Well, it's in 2 different places, actually. I mean, we actually have the disaster recovery site for the Nysboe system. The backup and recovery for everything else gets backed up to tape and goes to Iron Mountain every day. So
That's physically shipped, not by
Yes.
electronics.
Right.
Well, the Nysboe is an off-site in Westchester. The State Emergency Management has a server farm. So that has a different...
Nysboe is actually backed up real time because all the transactions that take place on the main site also go to Westchester's.
Yeah, and then when you're annually, we're testing that, shifting it over, or...
Well, we haven't. I mean, it's a major disruption.
Yeah.
It's you got to have the staff to be able to do something like that.
And we got that, at the time, it was good for us because they were just developing that site, so we were able to get it, but really just put our equipment in there. It wasn't a cost to the site. Now, will that continue? I don't know. I mean, we're living at the largest of another state agency, so to speak, but who knows?
Yeah, the CIO that worked with me on that is no longer with SEMO. He's moved on to another agency.
So hopefully we don't have to address that either, but we know it's there. It's, you know.
Our concern is how long will it last?
Yeah, hopefully for a long time, because, you know, other state agencies also utilize that as a disaster recovery site, as well as the Iron Mountain for with the tape, you know, the off-site storage for that, but, you know, it's an issue.
I feel that we're giving people, you know, we're getting fewer people while we're getting more and more things that we have to do.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, it's not as if it's gone silently. It's like we certainly make the requests and we make it known,
Certainly.
you know, when the budget comes out, which will be, as I said, shortly when we start the meeting.
And I
And
think
these
that-
are the things that we put in there and lay out, here's what we need to do. Here's where we could use help. And we know we live, you know, in a larger world, and it's very hard because you have to get, you know, and it's really, you know, it's the governor, the Senate, the Assembly all have to come together and give us the resources we need. But sometimes we get the resources we get and not what we need, so.
And we're living in very tough economic times, which
And
are
it
not
plays
getting
against
better
that,
at this
yeah.
moment. We have
That's-
to hope and pray that they do start to get better.
I think from our perspective, the budget is going to be, the budget is never where we get to lay out our project needs. It's more recently, it's simply give us
Fill in the
either
hole, the finger in the dam.
whatever the number is,
It's
we
like
tell you to
this.
fill in, put it in there and send it to us. It's the budget side letter that is the next step, and that's where we have to identify what are the programs, what's the unmet need, what's the out year issues that they should consider. And, you know, the life cycle of the equipment we bought with federal funds is fast approaching. That's expensive equipment. So there's a number of items that will need to be in the budget letter, side letter. And we don't have the call yet, but it's one of those items that will be before our next meeting.
Right. Plus, there's tremendous, you know, competition for what funds are out there between housing and education and medicine. I mean, we're not so high on that totem pole. And we can all understand that. It's very difficult. Very difficult.
It is.
Thank God I'm not the one who has to make those decisions, you know.
Thank you. George, when will your last meeting be with us?
Probably December, if you
Oh,
have
you'll
it
be-
before the 22nd. If not, it'll be November.
Let us know. I asked that because we just gave you, everything has been a little bit brief today. We gave you a brief thank you for your service, but I think we can go into a little bit more detail at your last meeting here. You've been a great service to us and to the Board of Elections in the state of New York, and for that
It's
matter.
been interesting. It's been fun some of the time, not so much fun some of the time. It's been always been interesting.
Well, thank you. Let us know when your last meeting is.
Okay.
New business. Vote on a resolution to authorize expenditure of HAVA funds for court-ordered voting machine modifications and testing.
Are we skipping A?
Yeah, I thought we were-
Old business?
I thought we weren't going to do that.
Well, that's
We're gonna do the one.
the prima facie.
We have one to do.
Are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were.
The one.
Yeah, I have that. I thought you were not going to address that. Okay.
Basically, what you have before you is, we did receive one set of general and specific objections regarding the Independence Party nomination in the 148th Assembly District. The specs allege legal issues outside the scope of the board's determination. So the recommendation is that it be deemed an invalid objection because it is outside of our scope for us to rule on, and that the nominating documents stand with the candidate being on. As you know, as I said earlier, there is a lawsuit challenging that, so that will ultimately be resolved in the courts.
What assembly district is this?
148th,
And we're not going to take any position at all in the court
we're
proceedings.
just going to provide the papers.
Provide the papers and agree that we'll comply with whatever order the court.
Right.
And this is just a matter of information, no vote required by the...
I think a vote, if you
On the-
would be
on the
required
spec, right.
on this, on the one spec.
So I move that we adopt the staff report on prima facie
Is there a
review.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we go to item B, vote on the resolution authorizing expenditure of HAVA funds for court order voting machine modifications and testing.
I move the adoption of the resolution as drafted.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Vote on a resolution commending the following county boards of elections on conducting the primary election in light of Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee. Broome, Delaware, Greene, Montgomery, Schenectady, and Tioga County Boards of Elections.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to expand that resolution, if that's possible, to include the people of the State Board of Election.
I think what we should do is
Separate?
adopt these resolutions, and then if you want to make your own resolution, it's fine. But these
fine.
are done formally so that
Okay.
these county boards went to extraordinary lengths and really
They
went
certainly did.
above and beyond the call of duty to
Certainly
make sure
did.
that the elections occur. And we thought it would be a good idea that they have something
Right.
to memorialize their efforts, that we would do something formal that we can send them, and if they want to frame them, that would be
Right,
nice.
absolutely.
But, I think it would be appropriate if we read one of them.
Yes.
Why don't you pick out like Broome or Tioga and just read it, just so everybody can hear it.
Commissioner, if I may,
Yeah.
we should also mention that Schoharie County didn't have a primary election, but they were also quite severely hit by the Schoharie Creek flooding up into the Mohawk. The county seat was badly flooded. They're just getting back into some of their buildings and their equipment and their, but they didn't have an election, so we didn't include them in with the resolutions. But I think that their board is still working very hard to get their stuff back together and up and running for the general election, so they should at least be mentioned.
Good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you.
Gotta read the Broome or Tioga?
Got that nice deep voice.
Sure.
You should do books on tape, I think.
You don't hear my voice, 'cause it's high and thin.
Resolution commending the Broome County Board of Elections, whereas there are 58 boards of elections in New York State, one in each county, and the City of New York charged with the responsibility to carry out elections and primaries at which enrolled members of a party may vote for the purpose of nominating party candidates and electing party officers. And whereas boards of elections are not permitted to postpone or cancel elections or primaries, no matter what circumstances occur to impede their ability to perform the elections, and whereas in September of 2011, the convergence of Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee produced historic flooding in various parts of the northeastern United States, and in particular the counties of Broome, Tioga, Delaware, Schenectady, Greene, Schoharie, and Montgomery in New York. And whereas in Broome County, the Shenango and Susquehanna rivers merged in the center of downtown Binghamton, where the rivers rose more than 25 feet and exceeded a record set by Hurricane Agnes in 1972. And whereas more than 20,000 people were evacuated from their homes in the city of Binghamton and the surrounding communities as roads and bridges were closed or washed away, and a state of emergency was declared throughout the county. And whereas the commissioners and staff worked diligently to adapt to the situation by moving polling places where necessary, communicate with poll workers, arrange for alternative transportation to new poll sites for voters, distribute optical scanners and ballots throughout the county, and ensure that results were collected and announced on election night. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Commissioners of the New York State Board of Elections commend Commissioners John Perticone, Eugene Fawn, Deputy Commissioners Mary Pines and Karen Davis, and the staff of the Broome County Board of Elections for their resourcefulness, diligence, and dedication in conducting and completing the election on primary day, September 13, 2011, in the face of significant obstacles and ensuring the mission of all boards of elections was performed with competence and professionalism.
And of course, we have similar resolutions for all of the counties, and I think we all
Very good job, well done, yeah.
share that positive sentiment. So move the adoption of the resolutions as drafted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I would like to suggest at this time maybe that we have a resolution for our next meeting drawn up for the members of the New York State Board of Election, who I think also went above and beyond the call of duty and how they assisted to see that everybody in New York State, especially those who were affected by Hurricane Irene, and Tropical Storm Lee were able to get to vote, and that was through the procurement of buses and transformers, so that there was light in the place, so that there was power. People who were in areas where they couldn't get to the voting place could get to the voting place. And I know that several members of our staff worked very hard in seeing that happened, and I would like to publicly commend them, and I thought we could do that at the next meeting by having a formal resolution drawn up. Is that all right?
Right. Yep.
Very good.
Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Let it be noted.
Commissioners, before you move to the next issue, if there is a next issue, I think that may be the last issue.
Vote on
Just
the
determinations. Determinations.
I was just handed an original document that came in today while we've been meeting, which are general and specific objections, again, challenging the Independence Party nomination process, similar to the 148th AD that you just ruled on. I don't know if the board would like to consider making a similar ruling on this particular document as well. It does seem to be
Can I
outside.
just look at it?
We have to look at it,
And I'll
sure.
do that while we do the other two.
It just came in.
I don't know, I got to.
Fifth, you said the fifth trading independence?
Sorry,
That's-
Hogan, it just
yeah.
comes in and we haven't really seen it.
So did I have a vote on that resolution?
You don't need it until we vote, right?
Oh, okay.
We don't have it yet, but we will vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to put a resolution before us next board meeting. I have to
Yeah.
draft it, so.
So this is the same issue?
I
Yeah.
haven't checked,
I have
but
it.
I'll believe it.
It's the same issue as we had
Well,
before.
while Bob is looking at that, can we, I move that we adopt the staff reports on campaign finance enforcement.
Second that motion.
Yes.
All right, okay. Carried.
And then we had discussed the next meeting date?
Next meeting date is set for October the 27th, same time, same place.
Right. Oh, really?
Candidates.
We've only been here for how many years?
We still have the preliminary determination to vote on.
We just did
also.
that.
We did?
Didn't we?
We just did that.
We just did that now. Yeah.
We did
Oh,
that.
I see.
All right, so we just need 1 minute to look at this. I think it's the same, though, and if we can,
What is it again?
it's the same objection.
Oh, it is? Okay.
This is to judicial convention delegates, and, but the issue is the same, that it's
Basically, I'll
based
just
on.
restate it again. It's general and specific objections. The candidate is Michael F. Young et al. The office is Supreme Court, 5th JD, the Independence Party.
Specific types of issues.
It's still outside the scope of the
No, I
court.
don't disagree with what Tim's saying, but.
So it's
not
invalidating the
same.
they're saying that the nominating hearing was invalid for a variety of legal reasons, which is outside our scope. So I would be recommending, as we did in the case above it, that it's invalid objections and the nomination at this point should stand.
Okay.
Until I don't have a spin on it, so I have no idea.
I'm never too comfortable voting on things that were just handed to us.
Well, that's why I read
Yes,
it, and
yes.
Bob is reading it now.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it for a minute, yeah. We should,
the cover was just.
I'll just read the specifics.
Yeah, it's to the, how they ran the convention.
Yes, okay.
Usually that's how I was going.
Anyone want to?
I understand.
No. No, there's a back to Ken.
So Commissioner, if I could, just explain what we did kind of informally, that during the course of this meeting, we did receive in the mail specific, general and specific objections to the certificate of nomination for the independent party for the office of Justice of the Supreme Court in the 5th Judicial District. A review of those objections indicates that the allegations therein are legal and are outside the scope of our board's authority to rule on. As such, I would ask that the commissioners find the general and specific objections invalid as they are outside of our scope, and that they would rule that the nomination would currently stand as is.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Carried.
And again, we have the same understanding that
Same
the board is
understanding.
not going to take any position in the litigation, other than to just appear.
If there's no further business, let's have the motion to adjourn.
So
Did the
moved.
folder go
What
around
about- yeah,
there?
what about
Favor?
preliminary
Aye.
determination?
Opposed? Carried.
We did it.
We're
Did
adjourned.
they?
Done.
What do you want?
That used to be in a folder. And
No, this is